Welcome everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to take a look at Tony Banks' A Chord Too Far. It's a 4-CD box set collection of solo work from the Genesis keyboard, and this was released in 2015, and we'll dive into that. But before we go any further, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button. Also leave a comment, hit like. All those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And as an added bonus, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music. Just like this, we're taking a look at Tony Banks' A Chord Too Far. And so now going back, Tony Banks got his start, of course, in Genesis, which formed in 1967. And they released their debut album in 1969, which means that at this point here, the band has now been around 54 years. And so the band itself initially came to prominence with Peter Gabriel as the front man. However, there was a shift in 1975. Peter Gabriel stepped away, and instead, drummer Phil Collins moved to the forefront, becoming lead vocalist of the band. And so, in 1978, though, following the tour for the album And Then There Was Three, the band went on hiatus. And with this unscheduled break, it provided Tony Banks an opportunity to pursue a solo career at this point. And so in 1979, he releases his debut solo album, A Curious Feeling. And while Genesis did reactivate in 1980 and release the album Duke, Tony does continue his solo career in tandem to Genesis, the band. And so in 1983, he releases his next solo album, The Fugitive. And then he forms a band project called Bank Statement. In 1989, they released one album, and it was fashioned after Mike Rutherford's side project, Mike and the Mechanics, lending it a more pop sensibility to it than the prog rock stuff. And so his next solo album came in 1991. It was titled Still. And then he tried his hand at another band project, this time collaborating with Wang Chung frontman Jack Hughes. They formed a band called Strictly Incorporated and released one album in 1995. And so at this point, Tony's faced with a changing musical climate, the things that were going on at the time, and he decides to move away from rock and focus on classical. And so he releases two more solo albums, but in that vein. And so he releases A Suite for Orchestra in 2004 and 6 Pieces for Orchestra in 2012, which brings us all the way up to date to discuss this, A Chord Too Far. This came out in 2015, and as I said, it's a 4-CD box set that collects together 48 tracks from his solo career, and it gathers up solo material, soundtrack work, band projects, and also those classical works that I was talking about. What I like about this, though, is that the first 3 discs that are in here actually focus on the rock sound that he was doing on the solo projects. And so if you're more into that sort of a thing, you can dive into that, and it doesn't really break the flow in listening. The 4th disc in here is instrumental and focuses instead on those classical works along with some other instrumental pieces. And they also include some unreleased material on that 4th disc as well. But what I also like too, beyond the way that they split this up, is that the tracks themselves are not sequenced chronologically. Instead, Tony arranged them to focus on the artistic nature of the tracks themselves. And some of the tracks too have been remixed in order to help them fit into that new sequence a little bit better. Since they aren't going side by side with tracks from the albums that they were on, now they're going next to tracks that are from all these different projects. And so that really helps with it. And in doing so, I think this is really helps the flow of the album itself. Each of the discs that are on here sounds like an individual album. So as opposed to going through it with different styles and hearing time periods and things of that nature on it, each disc in here is like a standalone disc, and I really do appreciate that aspect of it. It makes it much more interesting for me to throw on a disc from this than doing something where I'm listening to it chronologically. Following this here, so the thing is, it also gives me a new appreciation for his work. It also shows me what a huge effect he had on the Genesis sound and the overall presentation of the music itself. So while people usually think of Phil Collins or Peter Gabriel first, hopefully this is going to shed a new light on Tony and kind of move him up at least into the higher echelons of name recognition, like Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins and Steve Hackett and people of that nature and so forth. So let's take a look at this. It's a really great box set presentation. It's done in a book style, and it's got a hardcover on the front of it, and it just opens like a book does. On the back side of it here, we can see that it's broken down, track listing for each of the 4 discs. But what I also like is down here at the bottom of this, it actually gives what the tracks come from. So it'll say tracks on disc 1, tracks 1, 6, 8, 12, or something to that nature comes from a particular album. So you don't necessarily have to open this to dive into it just to know where the tracks are coming from. But once we do open it, you get 2 of the discs up front here, and the other 2 in the back here. And this is also nice the way these are done too. The way they're held, they've got these tabs at the bottom where you just pull down and the disc pops out from it, as opposed to the kind that you're releasing the tab from the center of the disc. So kind of nice the way they do that. And then you've got the book itself, which is very well done. It opens with the track listing there in the front. But what I like about this here is that it goes album by album, and it gives a written, explanation going into tracks and things like that, and thoughts on it. And it's from Tony's perspective. He wrote it. Then you get really great photos from the same time period. But it goes album by album all the way through, so you can follow along on all of his solo works that he did, all of his releases. There's Banks' statement. And as you go through this, it really shows you some great photos and things, and it's nice to see a collection of pictures and things that just focuses on Tony, as opposed to, again, normally if we were seeing something on Genesis, we'd be seeing a lot of the other guys and a lot more photos of that. And this one here really shows us everything about Tony, which is great. And as we get to the back here, what's really great is that there is a section in here just for this, A Chord Too Far, right up on the box set, and his thoughts on that. And following that, then it does a track-by-track breakdown, who plays what album it's from. So you get all of that great information. You know where all the tracks come from, who played on them, the albums, time frame, all that sort of stuff is included within that. So bottom line on this box set here, for me, I think it's a really great collection that highlights deep cuts and not just the hits, the type of stuff that came out at the time to promote it. It focuses on so much more, and I think it presents this material in a new way for the diehard fans to hear it as though they're hearing it for the first time. But at the same time, it's also a really great place to start for beginners, for people who are new to Tony Banks, even for people who are new to the Genesis world. And so this box set here has a little bit of something for everyone on it. And at the same time, I think, if you're a fan of Tony Banks, Genesis, or prog rock in general, yes, I think this is a great box set to check out for those fans of that kind, and I would highly recommend it. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you did, please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on this. I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll talk to you all real soon. Bye, everyone.